Hello there, Qckslvrslash, and today I've got a Tier 6 video for you. I'm driving my French premium battleship, the Dunkerque, alongside Flying Goomba, who's in his Tier 6 German battleship, the Bayern. Trying to help him get through it and get to the Bismarck, and the only way you get through a ship is by driving it, so this is kind of me forcing him to drive his Bayern a little more. As you can see, playing on the new map added to the game, Shards, and I gotta say, I'm really enjoying this map. I've played on it a couple times. My video yesterday in the Benson was actually on it, and the things I like is it's almost mirrored diagonally. A has a lot of cover around the south of the cap, C has a lot to the north. Both A and C are quite small, so if you get in there and someone else is there, it's a gunfight. And you've got B in the middle, which is pretty open approaches and is much bigger. So I really have been enjoying this map. I've come across it I think 3 or 4 times now. And I think it's a good addition to the game. So as you can see, we're heading to C. This is a battleship heavy match with 2, 4, 5 battleships on each team, couple cruisers and a destroyer and a couple carriers apiece. So you know, or at least I know in this one, I've got to carry my weight. When you get into a match that's got a significant number of battleships, you driving a battleship have to make sure you're taking a bunch out. And Goomba and I, right from the start, agree we're going to C. You can see a lot of our team is actually coming with us. Clearly their destroyer went to C because it's nearly capped, and you can see ours who went to A has almost gotten A as well. And from what we can see of their team, they look to be splitting up almost equally, whereas we're all primarily pushing one direction. I think this is going to be a big advantage for us once we get there. I throw some HE out at that Bayern, hoping primarily for a fire. You know, one of the big ways you get damage in the Dunkerque, at particularly long ranges, is with fires. I end up connecting with 3 shells, do 4,700 damage, and that's when we spot this enemy Omaha. So I bring my guns over. Goomba and I have both agreed we're gonna wreck them. I fire my first volley and I switch to AP because into cruisers, battleships, anything side on, you know you've got to be firing the AP. And conveniently that Omaha decides now is the time to turn. I know somewhere in this area their Qckslvrslash is gonna be hiding, and I've just got to be aware of that. So you saw a second ago I slowed down. That was to keep kind of at the same place as Goomba, but to also just throw off any torps. And Qckslvrslash ends up throwing his torps at my slowed down lead. I double Citadel the Omaha, finishing him off. Throw my repair on from that damage I've taken, and I put the fire out because I don't feel I'm going to be taking a lot of HE right now. We spot the Qckslvrslash, and he's going right towards one of our carriers, actually kind of the para-carriers. And Goomba and I kind of have a bit of a discussion here, and we decide that we've got to push up into these. There's a couple cruisers, some battleships, and things that are closer to our carriers to defend. Our job is to hold back all these battleships. So with nothing else to shoot at, unfortunately AP loaded, I fire at the Bayern. I know I'm not going to get much damage there. Only connect for 970 with an over-penetration, and I'm hard astern because I saw the Nuremberg on the map coming this way. You know he's going to put torpedoes in the water, and I'm just hoping I managed to stop soon enough to really dodge those. You can see the first set, they're already going to be clear of my bow because I managed to stop. And the second set are in the water. And the one thing I do really enjoy about the Dunkerque is, for a big ship, she's fairly responsive, but that's typical of the kind of battle cruiser design. They were meant to drive straight at the enemy at high speed and close and do damage. Put the rudder over to starboard a little bit, swing the bow to port, easily dodge the second set of torpedoes, and the Nuremberg gets wrecked by Goomba. but not before getting 2 sets of torps off in Goomba's direction. He eats 1 from the first set, successfully dodges the second, and next on our hit list is this enemy Bayern. I'm just checking over my shoulder, continuously making sure I know where that Minikaze is, and you can see our team is diving in at him, but I think we're going to lose this carrier long before he gets killed, or at least after. So you can see Noah's on, firing HE at the Bayern. There's really no reason for me to try AP at this angle. I get another 2 fires. Unfortunately, his damage control cooldown was active and didn't get much. So right now, I'm just looking over, making sure I note what all the planes are doing there. I don't want to get surprised by some torpedo bombers or the like. And as I'm looking there, Goomba finishes off that Bayern, and our next target has to be this Fuso. So with HE loaded, obviously going to fire it, and then right away switch over to AP because, I mean, you saw how little damage I did. And a Fuso side on, sub 10k, the Dunkerque is going to rip apart. So it's here that Goomba decides, I'm ramming that enemy Fuso. We're talking about it in chat, I agree for the most part, but I'm kind of telling him, you know, close to ramming distance, like make sure that's an option, but you've got a lot of support, so don't commit to it unless it's a last resort. I look at the Bayern for a second, but then I see the Fuso bow emerging, aim, put the volleys out, and absolutely wreck her. 4 penetrations and a Citadel for a huge chunk of her health, and I'm kind of just begging Goomba, like, turn off, try to stay alive. You know, the ram isn't worth it at this point. Unfortunately, he eats a big volley, and I probably cost him some damage and experience. But the Fuso wastes an entire volley, finishing him off, which frees me up to finish the Fuso off with another Citadel and 2 penetrations. So now my focus has to be on the capture points. We're pretty even as far as kills and points go. So capturing C when it's uncontested like this, definitely the way to go. And my plan is to go through C and turn out this channel and attack this Bayern, who I'm hoping stays side on, trying to get around this edge of land. And failing that, I'll engage that Fuso, who is running away from these battleships and cruisers to my southeast. So at this point, I'm in really good standing. Got 60% of my hit points, still have 3 repair parties, damage control is done, just put my plane up, so I'm feeling good. Get the side of the Bayern, put a volley of AP out at him, and get a really solid hit, 8,200 damage, and I'm already approaching that 100,000 damage mark, which at tier 6 for me is always a nice place to be. I get lucky that those secondaries missed me because I know I was holding a bunch of the cap points, and his main battery shells were too late to stop me from assisting in the capture at that point. He does manage to stun one of my guns, and it is one of the Bayern's kind of downsides is you can lose a gun from time to time, but if you've built up your modules right, I don't find it happens so often that it's kind of crippling. So I put 1 volley out at the Fuso, dispersion bites me, and all I get is an overpen. And at this point, it's a little hard, but I really want to get that second volley on the Fuso. She's right side on, and the Bayern's resistance to Citadels really detracts from shooting at her. Second volley ends up getting me 6,000 damage, and you can see these pair of ships are basically grinding into one another. I'm eating some really good damage here, so I burn one of my repair parties. I put another entire volley out at the Fuso, and every single shell misses. I get hit by that fire, but I'm not going to put it out yet. Simply because Bayerns should have a lot of secondaries firing at me, but I don't seem to be taking too much. Losing my gun for the second time, though, quickly burnt that cooldown because I wanted the hits on the Fuso before I end up in a chase game. I get lucky there, a fire from my secondaries, and you can see I'm keeping myself angled here. I just want at least one of those rear turrets to have the opportunity to be shooting. AP, obviously not what you want right at the stern of a ship, but it's what I've got, and the torpedo bombers finish her off. So 115,000 damage in, 2 kills, got a Confederate, and we're going to skip ahead now because you can see I'm pretty far from anything on the enemy team. So not a lot has happened as I've closed B. You can see our Cleveland has gone off, found one of their CVs, and I'm putting volleys out at this New Mexico, and just look at that dispersion. One shell hits and it ricochets, and I'm switching to HE. I find at any kind of long-range engagement, HE is just the better bet. You get some good damage out of it, and just the chances of fires, especially if they get the chance to burn, really going to help you out. So I take my time, I aim, and I put the shells out, and this grouping is a lot tighter than that last one. They're looking good, and I'm lucky that I get 2 fires, 1,500 damage, and these are going to burn. And it's right now that I'm like, I may actually get the kill on this New Mexico. We've got a Cleveland sitting there firing at her, but it's really my secondary damage that's ticking her down, and the Cleveland ends up getting the finishing shot. Fair enough, they're the ones who really worked on that kill. I didn't really get a volley off until the New Mexico was on 10k. So at this point, I'd call this game done. The Bogue is under attack by cruisers. There are other CVs unspotted, but we've got 2 caps and we're gonna win this. 4 minutes left, so let's jump to the post-battle screen. And for me, that was another solid performance in my Dunkirk. 372,000 credits, 6,200 experience, First Blood, Confederate, Dreadnought, Devastating Strike, 122,000 damage, 12 airplanes shot down, 2 kills, 4 citadels. And this ship never gets old to me. I really enjoyed driving it. I think that was apparent in my review, and I'm so glad I did end up buying her. Overall, top of the team, 1,800 experience. Goomba got 1147, and he played an important role. He drove in and kind of took the focus of the fire, and it allowed me to do damage. So I've got to thank him for that. Detailed report. Nothing too special here. Good spread of damage. The Omaha I twin sit to kill and Fuso and such. And credits and XP, you know you're walking away with a good amount. Just shy of 300,000 after all my consumables. And 7,600 for my French captain, who has a tier 4 skill and is continuing to grow. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving me a thumbs up or subscribing to the channel. Both motivate me and really help me out. And as always, I am Qckslvrslash, and I'll have another one for you guys tomorrow.